This is the Bob Davis Podcast YouTube channel. We are at a high vibe for 2025 at Death Valley National Park. And there's a lot to talk about. I have to sort of clear the air at the beginning because I've kind of had a couple of epiphanies while doing this video. This is one of the hardest videos I've done because of the conditions and the starting and the restarting. I don't think I've done this much work on a video in ever. And when you shoot extra video, and I've started to put essentially what's called B-roll or video in these videos for YouTube, and I enjoy doing it. I'm glad I'm doing it. But the problem with that is I start thinking about the video that's going to be rolling underneath what I'm saying and whether or not it's synced up. And the weird thing is, what happens is that rather than telling a story, so when I started doing videos on YouTube, it was kind of like this. I would just sit in front of the camera and talk, and I would tell a story. I would tell whatever story, and I'd talk about whatever changes that I was going through as a nomad while I was doing the video. When you start adding video, you want it to sync up and you want to do the video in a way that syncs up. And I realize that you can move video around, but I want the B-roll video to kind of be in a sequence so that people can follow along and it's not confusing. The problem with doing that is that then we sort of take on a monotone. Because what we're doing is we're not just talking and we're not telling a story. We're now trying to sync up the video. So I have a lot to say about Death Valley. I have a lot to say about this experience. And I don't know that I can sync it up completely to the video that I'm showing you. So you kind of have to take it in. One of the things about travel is experiences kind of layer in. And a year later, you don't know where you were. And you don't know what you were doing. And you have to listen to a podcast or watch a video or look at the pictures on your phone or go through your journal to remember what you were doing and where you were doing what you were doing. So life, in a way, doesn't sync up the way video syncs up anyway. And one of the things about Death Valley, the austere and historically unforgiving Death Valley, is that it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. There are so many beautiful pictures people have taken, pictures that people have painted, stories that people have told about it. You can't possibly experience the whole place, in one fell swoop. And I'm lucky because I can stay here as long as I want. I can be here at Texas Springs down by Furnace Creek, or I can be at Panamint, or I can be at Texas, any other campsite, Dante's Inferno or whatever it is, in the park, which is massive. It's the largest national park in the lower 48, and it certainly has a lot of different qualities. I'm not a ranger, so I'm not going to try to do that kind of a thing, because then you end up kind of doing or trying to do a travel log. So coming to Death Valley for me was somewhat of a tortuous route. I knew I was going to come up here, and I knew the plan was to come up here at some point, either around Christmas or after the New Year. And I thought if I came up at Christmas, there wouldn't be a lot of people here. I was in Las Vegas. If you guys have been following the videos, you know that I went through some trials and tribulations and some torture in Las Vegas, because what I was there doing was I went there to pick up a heater, which I ended up having to return, and that's a whole different story. And it's a low vibe, so we're not going there. Got kicked out of a lot of truck stops, and if you want to watch those videos, you'll see the truck stop experience, the Hell at Truck Stop Nation, both audio podcast and video that I did. And in addition to that, I got a lot of work done on the vehicle. The problems were difficult to diagnose and difficult to fix, actually. And I did get to stay at Lake Mead a couple of nights, and I highly recommend that. That it's a recreation area, campground administered by the National Park Service, I think, down by the lake, and I stayed there 2 or 3 nights, as well as I worked on got the work on the truck done in Boulder City. So that's kind of the background. And ended up taking a tortuous route to get here. I wanted to go to the hot springs, so I decided I was going to go to the hot springs. There's hot springs at Shoshone, really warm springs at Shoshone, California, and hot springs at Tecopa. And if you listen to the audio podcast, which this video is a companion to, podcast 1154, High Vibe 2025 in Death Valley. I'll put links in the description box for that video. I keep calling it Tacoma. It's Tecopa, California, not Tacoma, California. And there they have a mineral hot springs, which is much better than the hot springs that have chlorine and other chemicals in them. It's called God's Healing Waters, I believe. They call it that because they are federally regulated, so they don't have to use chlorine and other stuff that the state requires that they do for hot springs. And obviously there's some other rules. They have to clean the tubs a lot, and it was an incredible experience. I stayed there for 3 days. And you can see just the palette of colors. If you come here, you get these storms and these experiences with weather that are really extraordinary. One of the things about Death Valley is that there's so many ranges that it affects rainfall, and it affects the weather significantly. This place kind of creates its own weather. And you can kind of see that at some of these places. So after the hot springs experience, I felt great and decided, okay, I'm going to go up to Death Valley. And I left for Death Valley on Christmas Day. Death Valley obviously has an ancient history, it has a Native American history, and it has a 20th century, largely 20th century history, starting with the pioneers in the 1850s, all the way up through the beginning of the mining era and the tourist era in Death Valley. And so all around Death Valley are towns and places where things happen and people went. One of them is the Amargosa Opera House, which they're trying to restore and bring back to its original glory from back in the 1920s. But Amargosa, the Amargosa, I believe it's how you pronounce it, Opera House, I don't believe is in the national park system. So after the Amargosa hotel, I guess it is, an opera house, you take a left and you head up to Death Valley. So I came up to Death Valley on Christmas Day. You've certainly seen video of me, in Los Angeles and Las Vegas traffic. This is more the video. This is more what I enjoy. Being able to be on an open road with a clean windshield and a full tank of fuel is my idea of travel. But I was a little surprised on Christmas Day how crowded Death Valley actually was. I thought this is going to be a good time to come up here because it's not going to be crowded. Winter is go time for Death Valley because coming up here in the summer, while it's interesting, it's really, really hot. And coming up here, the first thing that you see when you come into Death Valley is this little kiosk where people buy their pass to get in. There's no people, there's no gate there. You just buy a pass. You're kind of on your own honor, and you come in. One of the things that I like to do when I'm in these parks is I like to stop and make myself a cup of coffee and just take a little break and enjoy the surroundings. So as I got up to 20 Mule Team Valley, I stopped and made a cup of coffee, and there were so many people there. I could not believe how many people were there, and I couldn't figure out why this spot, why are there so many tourists, especially tourists from other parts of the world here at 20 Mule Team Valley. Well, this is the spot, I later learned, where they shot all the desert scenes for Star Wars. So that's why people come to this particular place. because they want to see where they shot Star Wars. And this is where they shot the desert scenes for Star Wars, but you can see how many people there are. One of the things about, again, as I said, travel is, and I see it in the national parks all the time. Saw it in Yellowstone times 10. See it here too. And this is the racing from one attraction to the next, taking a lot of pictures and sort of trying to compress your time and make the most use of your time. I camped with a couple of women who were really experienced hikers, and they were very careful about how much they extended themselves when they left camp to go to these various attractions. And there's so many of them. And again, as I said, I'm not a camp counselor, I'm not a park ranger, and I'm not about to tell you all of these different spots that you can go to see things. When you come up here and to a campground that's first come, first serve, let's say, at Texas Springs, there's hills around this camp, as you can see behind me. You go up there and you can see beautiful things from really almost everywhere that you are. You can see sunsets and sunrises. If you want to go to Artist Palette or some of these other places in the park to see a sunrise, you can do it, and people do. But I like to take my time. I have enough time. I'm certainly going to camp other places here in Death Valley, and I'm probably going to spend at least another week here after spending. I've been here almost 10 days now, so I'm sure I'll spend some other days here as well. But I guess I would say for people that come to national parks, don't feel that you have to rush. One of the things that I see a lot when I come to these parks is that in the evening, people come in late at night and they can't tell where they are. They want to get a campsite. The campsites fill up, especially the first come, first serve campsites fill up really fast at dusk. And then when you get into the nighttime, you can't see your hand in front of your face most of the time. So people have a real hard time coming in at dusk. So the only suggestion I'd make is try to get into your campsite early in the day. And then maybe you can leave a chair in the campsite and go visit some other areas later on, and then you'll at least have a place to come back to. I also want to talk a little bit about the Christmas spirit or the holiday spirit. One of the things I noticed from conversations with people this year, of course, in my nomad travels, I'm not going anywhere for Christmas. I certainly had a great Thanksgiving with family, but from Thanksgiving to Christmas and New Year's, it feels like 3 months, but it's only a month. So at the end of Thanksgiving, you only have a month before New Year's Eve, and the ancestral, the ancient. The ancients celebrated the solstice. They celebrated the darkness and the return of light, and there are many, many pagan celebrations going back thousands of years for that. And it predates the Christian era. A lot of people get upset, and I'm certainly not judging Christians, and I'm certainly not saying that Christmas is nonsense or anything like that. But I think the commercialization of Christmas, especially these days, has almost returned it to its pagan roots. So when you come up to Death Valley, I'm really happy to see people who decided we're going to come up to Death Valley and we're just going to have a relaxing holiday. We're going to have a relaxing Christmas, a relaxing New Year's, just hanging out and visiting some places and seeing some things. And it's hard to express how gorgeous this place is. Even though this is a bustling camp, now during the day, most of the people are gone. But just listen for a second. You don't hear any birds, really. You don't hear any traffic, really. What you're hearing, that low rumble, if you can hear it in your phone or if you have headphones on, is airplanes way, way above this place, and the wind, which blows up every now and then and drives me crazy because I hate winds in the microphone. But it's one of those conditions that you end up having to deal with when you do one of these videos. So it's really quiet, and it's really quiet at night, even in a crowded campground, and even with the fire. It's a great experience to be here and to experience the high vibe, and everybody else is experiencing the high vibe. And I was very happy to see that people came here and also enjoyed the high vibe at the holiday. So from here, I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know. I don't have a plan. I'm just going to spend some more time in Death Valley, enjoying this incredible view and experiencing these places, and taking my time as I go through the park. And I really appreciate the whimsy of some of the campers here at the end of the year as we go from Christmas to New Year's. Happy Festivus. Thanks for watching the Bob Davis Podcast YouTube channel. Thanks for listening and subscribing to the Bob Davis Podcasts. I'll put links for this podcast in the description box. Thank you for subscribing to the Bob Davis Podcast YouTube channel and liking and sharing and doing all the things. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I'm probably going to head to another part of Death Valley after New Year's Eve here in Death Valley at the campsite, and then on to the other attractions in Death Valley, and we'll see what happens after that. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. One of the things about pioneers is that I often wondered, well, why did they come to Death Valley? What was the reason they came to the Death Valley? And I kind of alluded to it, and I want to go a little deeper on it. They came here because of what happened to the Donner Party in the mid-1840s. The Donner Party, as many people know, got up over the Sierras, and they got stuck because they dawdled too long, and they basically ended up starving, and the survivors had to become cannibals, which is not a friendly, exciting story. So in subsequent years, 1849 would have been the first year that pioneers came here. They were enamored of the idea of a southern route through the valleys to the San Joaquin Valley in California, or points west, where they wouldn't freeze and they wouldn't have any privations. Coming through Death Valley, there was really not much information about it. Now, the pioneers, as I said, like to think that they were the first people here, but they weren't. And they didn't really think very much about the natives that were here and the people that came before them. So the problem with Death Valley was there was no water. And so as they came through Death Valley, they really started to have problems, and they couldn't go on any further. The only reason they survived and didn't have a Donner Party experience was because two of their party went ahead to Panamint Springs and resupplied and came directly back. They didn't even stop and rest. They came directly back to the people that were camped here at Furnace Creek, by the way, to replenish them, and then they were able to go on, and they are the people that, quote-unquote, named it Death Valley, although there's some debate as to what the original naming of the valley as Death Valley was.